today we are going to be repotting a Paphiopedilum orchid here. This is Paphiopedilum pisca raisin. It is the first time I will be repotting this orchid. It is in a 2-inch pot, as you can see. Paphiopedilums, they do like to have their roots crowded, but I want to get it out of this sphagnum moss that it's in. Not sure if you can see that, but it has this new growth here, and I'm really hoping that it will bloom. So I want to get it out of the old medium, put it into some new medium to help speed things along. This sphagnum moss, it's starting to break down, and Phragmipediums, Paphiopedilums, they don't like it when the medium breaks down. They get all pouty and they won't bloom. So I will be repotting this guy today, and the mix that I'll be using is sort of one of my own creations. You can see it's soaking in this water right now. You want to soak your bark before you pot your plants. Think of it kind of like a sponge. You don't clean your countertops with a dry sponge. You want to clean your countertops with a moist sponge, and in order to get things going, you have to run the sponge under water first so that the sponge can soak up all of that water. So it's kind of the same thing with orchid bark. You want to soak, that way your sponge is nice and moist before you pot it, especially with Paphiopedilums and Phragmipediums. They like a moist medium. So I've had this soaking in here for about 2 hours. It is a mixture of fine fir bark and sphagnum, just a little bit of sphagnum, not a whole lot because sphagnum does break down a lot. But I just wanted to give it that added bit of moisture in there, not just using the bark. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this guy out of his pot, which looks pretty difficult because it's a tiny pot. And I can tell that this medium is breaking down, so I have no idea what I'm gonna find in here. I might find some rotted roots, but that's okay. That's why I have this. This is my little snipper tool, and I snip away all of the dead or rotting roots. I first sterilize the blade though with a isopropyl alcohol. That way you don't transfer any diseases or viruses to the orchid that you're going to be repotting. So we'll just take it, maybe I can shake it out of here. I'd like to shake it. So it's easier to pull it out when it's not so cramped into the pot. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm just pulling out all of that sphagnum that it's potted in. We shall see what the roots look like in here. I don't know if it's gonna be pretty. That's a lot of sphagnum. Sometimes what growers will do is they'll put sphagnum on the top to retain moisture, and then they'll pot with bark underneath the sphagnum, but this one looks like it's all sphagnum in here, which kind of worries me because, yeah, sphagnum's not the best thing for potting Paphiopedilums. I'm moving quite a bit. It's not as packed in there as I thought. You just want to be very gentle because the roots for paphs are, they're furry. And so they're very easy to break off or damage. I might need to get a pencil to sort of poke in there. Okay, so I got this bamboo skewer and I'm just going to poke it from the bottom and see if that sort of helps push things out. I don't want to damage the roots though, so I'm just being very gentle when I poke here. Just a little bit at a time. That has loosened it up just a little bit, enough for me to pull this out. Slowly applying pressure. It doesn't want to come out of the pot. wiggling my finger around in there to sort of tease the sphagnum away from the roots and hopefully get this guy out. If you have a huge problem with the pot, you can always cut it away. If your orchid is so grown into the pot that you're afraid of damaging the roots, I haven't quite reached that point, but I'm getting there. Trust me. Oh, I felt a little bit of a give. I think it's gonna come out now. There we go. Okay. So now it is unpotted, and I'm just looking at the roots, seeing what I'm left with here. This is pure sphagnum moss. There is nothing else in here, and that really worries me. I'm seeing some damaged roots. Ooh, some really mushy roots right there. Can you see that? That is just, I mean, I can squeeze it between my fingers. There's nothing left of that root there. And you can actually pull it apart. I'll pull it apart so you can see. You can pull these apart, and then there's that stringy material in there. So I am gonna have to cut away the roots here, which is unfortunate because that can set back development of the orchid, but I don't have a choice here because these roots are bad. I mean, they're not as bad as I was thinking, but there's not a lot to work with right here. So you just want to get rid of all of the old medium as much as you can. Anyways, sometimes it's hard to remove all of the media, but you want to remove as much of the media as you can. And so that's what I'm doing here. I'm just removing this old sphagnum here. And hopefully this orchid will reward me for repotting him. You can see a new root has come up right there. That's good news. And frankly, the fact that the root is growing up away from the root mass, that means he was probably unhappy being potted in that sphagnum moss, and he's like, oh my gosh, get me out of there. I'm just gonna grow upwards to get away. So other than that, the orchid is fairly healthy. It is working with a very small root structure, as you can see here. And you want to toss all of this old medium. Never, 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 never reuse media. I don't care if you just repotted and you want to use it for a different orchid. That's how viruses get transferred, is if you use this media and put it in a pot for another orchid. So throw away your old media and start fresh. So I'm gonna have to cut this root here, and I'm gonna cut this one. I'm gonna cut the tip of this one because it's mushy. And I don't know if I want to cut that whole root off or not. Probably not. If you feel the roots and they feel firm, then you can keep them. But if they feel mushy, then you're definitely gonna want to cut it because that's part of the rot. So I'm just gonna snip off this root here. Snip it off. There we go. And I think there's anything else here we have to worry about. Not as bad as I was thinking for being potted in sphagnum. So maybe this guy was recently repotted. I'm not sure. I've had this one for about 6 months now. So maybe he was potted just before I bought him. He's one of my newer purchases. I'm just gonna snip this tip off there too. That one. There we go. And now I'm probably just gonna put him back in the same pot because there's not a whole lot going on there. So I don't have to worry about him being too big for the pot. He's pretty much perfect size for this pot. So I'm just going to repot him in the safe pot here. So, okay, so I'm going to repot him, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put these styrofoam peanuts, just 2 of them, at the bottom of the pot there. That's going to help with air circulation. This medium was staying wet. It is sphagnum, but it was staying much wetter than I would prefer. So I'm just going to put these styrofoam packing peanuts down at the bottom to sort of help with aeration and help this guy dry out, because I do water my orchids. They get a lot of rainwater, as you saw in my last video, lots of rainwater here. So I want him to have just a little bit more aeration. That's going to help with the roots. They won't be getting that rot, as you saw me clipping the roots off. They won't be getting that. So that will help greatly with airflow in this pot. So putting those styrofoam packing peanuts in there, and it also helps because I don't have to use as much medium, because this is sort of making the pot smaller. So I have my orchid mix here. It's this fine fir bark and sphagnum. Just a little bit of sphagnum, like I said, so I'm going to put a little bit of that at the bottom here. And sort of pack it in a little bit. Not too much though. Like I said, I want some airflow. Put a little bit more in there. So I have a little bit in the bottom of the pot there. And now it's time to put this guy in. And I'm going to put him just below the lips, similar to where he was. I want him to be touching that medium. So I'm going to have to put a little bit more in there, actually. I want him to be touching that sphagnum and that bark. So a little bit more in there for him. And back in. That's perfect. That's the perfect amount. And then I'm just going to fill in with sphagnum bark. Using my finger to sort of pack it in. More of that. And you're going to get like these stick things in the sphagnum mix, so don't worry about that. You can use it or you don't have to use it. Pushing him further down into this mix here. And hopefully this root coming off of the back will go back down into the medium, searching for that moisture. Pushing down a little bit more. Get some more of that medium, put it in there. I love the smell of this fir bark. Oh, it smells amazing. Reminds me of like a log cabin or something. So I'm just filling in about damaging the roots. I mean, obviously don't put any in the lid or anything, but don't worry about pushing the orchid down in there or packing it around the roots. It'll grow new roots, so you don't have to worry about damaging it. It's all good. Grow more roots. It's all good. And he is finished. You can see he's packed in there quite nicely all around. And he's got that fine fir bark mix, which will hold more moisture for him, but he'll also have the added benefit of the styrofoam packing peanuts at the bottom to give him a little bit more aeration. So he won't be just sitting in water. So there you go. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like the video, favorite the video if you want to come back to it. You can follow me on Twitter or subscribe to my channel for more tutorials. I hope to see you guys again.